Hello crafty friends, my name's Alicia, but you can call me Crafty Al. And welcome, or perhaps welcome back, to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I made my first set of cards using the brand new December 2024 SheetLoad of Cards printable. If you haven't yet downloaded this PDF, make sure to check out yesterday's debut video, which is linked down in that description box below and as an end card at the end of this one. Not only will I be showing you how I made my first set today, but my creative team is also joining me in sharing a look at their first sets for the month. To see what everyone created, including the new artists on the team, make sure to check out this month's playlist. It is your one-stop shop for all of the videos using December 2024. You can get there by using the link in the description box or the end card at the end of this video. Now, if you would rather hop from channel to channel, everybody is also linked down in that description box below. As always, I know that everybody would love for you to stop by, see what they created, and leave them some love. As I get into the process, I'll be telling you about the products and tools that I'm using, but as always, if I ever leave you with any questions, feel free to leave those down in that comment section and I'll get back to you just as soon as I can. Let's get crafty! Before I get started on the process, I did want to stop by with a special channel member shout out. I would like to say welcome to my newest paper trimmer level member, Maria A. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you as well to all of my channel members. You keep me creating here on YouTube and help keep SheetLoad of Cards free for all subscribers. If you're ever interested in learning more about the perks of channel membership, click on the join button below this video or the link in the description box below. To get started on today's cards, I'm going to be cutting both of my pattern papers per the cutting guide. You will notice there are some suggestions this month of how you can use your scraps. I'm going to get started with this first piece, which the paper I'm using today is Christmas Blessings from MISTI. Now, because mine does have a branding strip on the bottom, I need to trim that off first. Once that's off, I'm going to rotate it back portrait. So if your pattern paper has a specific direction, you'll want to keep that in mind before making the first cut. For me, what I'm going to do is cut two columns that are 5 1/4 inches wide. Now that does leave a scrap left over there at the end, and that's what we'll use later to decorate the inside of the cards. Once you have your two columns, you're going to rotate those again and cut them down to the final sizes shown on the printable. Unfortunately, when I was doing that, my camera shut off. So here you'll see all of the pieces I got from that first sheet. And now I'm going to finish showing you what you need to do with the second sheet. And this is actually the back side of the piece that I just cut down. Once I have the two columns of the second paper, I'm going to rotate these, and each piece gets cut into two pieces that are 4 inches tall, and then from that left over at the bottom, I'm going to cut 4 pieces from each side that are 3/4 of an inch tall. Now at the end here, the cut guide kind of runs into my fingers, so I did bring in a piece of removable tape to cut that last one. Now while I was cutting these, I wasn't really thinking. What you could also do is cut your 3/4 inch pieces first, and then from that leftover large piece, it's a lot easier to cut them to 4 inches tall. So do whichever is best for you. Once I had my pattern paper cut, I brought in CS1, and I'm going to cut this into 8 pieces that are 5 1/4 by 1.875 inches. 1.875 inches is the same as 1 7/8. These are going to end up being the matting pieces for your two skinny pattern paper strips. For my mats, I am using Bleu Cheese cardstock from Tailored Expressions. I thought this went best with the blue in the pattern paper. And just like with the pattern paper, I started by cutting two columns that are 5 1/4 inches tall. Once I have those two pieces, I'm going to rotate my cardstock, and this is where I'm going to make the cut at 1 7/8 or 1.875 inches. That mark is the one that is halfway between 1 3/4 and 2 inches on your trimmer. I'm going to show you here how the two pattern paper strips will kind of fit on here later. There's going to be 1/8 of an inch between the two pieces and on the top and bottom. From each of the 5 1/4 inch strips, you're going to get 4 of these mats for a total of 8. Now, one thing I do want to remind you of that I've been throwing out a lot of measurements here, and don't forget, you don't need to remember these or write them down. You can check out yesterday's debut video and download the printable for free. The last cardstock pieces you'll need are for CS2, which is the focal point, and these are partial 2 3/4 inch circles. Now for channel members, don't forget that you have access to an SVG to help you cut this. Later today on the membership tab and on the December blogs, you'll want to look for a picture like the one in the upper left-hand corner so you can download either the SVG or the PNG file. I did go ahead and use this for mine, so I got those ready off camera, and I was able to fit 9 of the little partial circles on an 8.5 by 11, so I'll have an extra one if I mess up the stamping or maybe for a later project. Now, if you're not yet a member or you don't have an electronic cutter, I am going to show you how to accomplish this just with dies and your trimmer. So I cut here a circle that is really close to 2 3/4 inches wide, but if you don't have one that is exactly that, or if your focal point is larger or smaller, choose what's going to fit for you. Also, having that flat edge is not a requirement. You could definitely leave it a full circle. If you follow the cutting guide, it wants you to cut 5/8 or 0.625 inches off of your 2 3/4 inch circle. That mark is the one that is halfway between 1/2 and 3/4 on your trimmer. I use that marking to the left of my cut line just so I would have room on the right to hold down my circle, but you'll see here that once I make that cut, those two pieces are almost identical. So again, you can make this work for you even if you don't have an electronic cutter. I spoke a little too soon. Those circles are not the last cardstock you'll need to cut. You will also need some card bases. This edition calls for 8, which means you're going to take 4 pieces of cardstock, cut it in half, and fold it in half. When you cut this, if you want to do the fold along the long edge like I do, you're going to cut your cardstock in half to 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. Now you could definitely go ahead and just fold this by hand, but I do like to bring in my Scor-Buddy and give those a few scores with the tool so that when I go to fold them, I have a nice crisp fold and no tearing or shedding on that edge. While I finished scoring and folding all of the card bases, I thought it would be a great time to stop by with a special recognition. In the month of November, I had some members earn their 1-year membership badge. So I would like to say congratulations to the following. Thank you so much for your continued support of my channel. Now all of the pieces are cut, so it's time to start assembling the card. The first thing I'm going to do is put my pattern paper piece Bs onto their blue cheese mat. Now one thing I forgot to mention earlier, when I was cutting the pattern papers, especially with the one with the stars and the poinsettias, I tried to make sure to keep the pieces that went side by side together. That way when I put them onto that final mat, the pattern flows correctly. There's no weird breaks. Now for the sweater piece though, because it all looks pretty much the same, I didn't worry too much about that. but you'll notice that for the more pattern paper, I have the pairs offset. Now for this first one, like I mentioned before, you're going to put these so there's 1/8 of an inch on the top and on the bottom, and then between the two patterns. And here you'll see for that first one how the pattern does flow there. It just has that little cutout in the middle. A hack that I like to use for placement of things like this is to bring in something like the Scor-Buddy, or you might want to use a MISTI or a trimmer, just something with a little ledge at the bottom. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to align my Bleu Cheese cardstock down there at the bottom, and then I can push my piece of pattern paper right up against that same ledge. Then all I have to worry about is the left to right spacing, and not so much worrying about getting it flush with this one edge of the cardstock. Have you ever tried this hack? Let me know down in that comment section below. Even though I love that hack and use it often, for some reason on the rest of these, I decided to do just free range placement out here in the middle of my work surface. I'm not sure why, but here you'll see I just kept adhering these until all 8 pieces were ready to go. For the next step, I brought back in my pattern paper piece A's, and then I switched up the patterns, or mixed and matched them, so that the skinny strips are different than the backer behind it. Now it's up to you at this point exactly where you want to place the matted strips. You can move it up or down on the card, that is up to you. I did decide to go ahead and stick with pretty much like the sketch shows. You will want to keep in mind though that if you move the strip up or down, that it will work with whatever focal point you've decided on. I put together the second card front in the same exact way, except this one has that knit sweater in the background and the floral paper in the foreground. You'll see here the 2 different options I'm going to have later for my finished cards. Now if your pattern papers are double-sided, you could flip them back and forth if they match up together, so you could get an even wider variety of cards later. I continued adding these until all 8 card fronts were complete. Once those were adhered together, I got my pattern paper pieces put onto the front of the card bases. I did my best to get a nice even border all the way around, and I did again use the Bleu Cheese cardstock to go with the floral paper. Now while I work on putting the rest of these together, I wanted to stop by and tell you about a couple special series that I have going on in December on my channel. Since it is the season of Advent, and I got myself a few Crafty Advent calendars this year, I will be going live each day at 10 a.m. Central from the 1st through the 24th for a special live stream series. I will be opening 4 Crafty calendars, Tailored Expressions, Pink and Main, Spellbinders, and Gummy-A-Pan. Together live, we will pick one product that I'm going to focus on, and I make a new tag based upon it. The other series I have is a pre-recorded daily series using only the Spellbinders Crafty Advent Calendar. For this, I am creating an adorable mini photo album to showcase the new gift from each day. I hope that you will check these out. I will have the playlist link down in the description box below. It's time now to get my focal points ready, so I brought back in my partial circles and Bleu Cheese ink from Tailored Expressions. For the sentiment, I am going to be using this Joyful Season set from Simon Says stamp, and to go with that knit sweater background, kind of feeling warm, I chose the Warm Holiday Wishes. I got the stamp set up in my mini MISTI, and I did one as a test to make sure it looked okay, and it did. I love that Bleu Cheese color. So now that that first one was set up, to get the remaining 8 sentiments was super easy. I just brought in the next partial circle, stamped it, and so on until I had 8 sentiments all ready to be added to my cards. Placement of your sentiment is once again going to be something that's up to you. You could do it on the left like I show on the sketch, or you could move it more to the right. Definitely play around with it and just decide on what you think looks best. For me, I am going to stick with the sketch, and I am also going to place this just flat down onto the card front to keep everything nice and thin for mailing. Now you could definitely pop this up with some foam tape, you could add a mat behind it or some other die cuts, but I did go ahead and just leave these cards as is, no extra bling or anything. Even though I didn't add any extra decoration to the front of the cards, I am going to use some of those pattern paper scraps to decorate the inside. Because I want the personal message to be easy to read, I did cut some buttercream frosting cardstock to 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches, and then I cut down my scraps. Now most of this I did off camera, but here is a look at the finished pieces I had. I had those fishtail banners and then the skinny strips at the bottom. Now there were still some other scraps left over, and I might use these on a card later or to decorate little pieces or envelopes, but for now I just set those to the side. Here's a look at the finished inside pieces that I decorated, and here are some close-up looks at the finished cards. I hope you enjoyed seeing how I put together my first set of cards using the December 2024 sheet load and got a few tips along the way. If you did, as always, a thumbs up is appreciated. Now don't forget to go visit the creative team members' videos by either using the links in the description box or the end card here in just a minute. Until my next video, I hope you're all having a crafty day. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch all the way to the end of the video. I hope now you'll consider clicking on one of the videos or playlists I have linked above. And if you are interested in any of the products or tools I used in today's video, I do have some links in the description box below.